Hey, good afternoon, and welcome once again to Fired Up. I'm your host for the show, Bob Irwin. We are coming to you from the studios of the American Guns and Glory Network here in Las Vegas, Nevada. This show is about guns, politics that are related to guns, and self-defense issues. Fired Up shows up on our website at firedupwithbobirwin.com. We post a new show every Thursday around 5 p.m. The audio feed is rebroadcast for radio listeners Saturdays at noon on the Nevada Talk Network. You can look that up at KELY1230.com for a station in your area. Basically, it's on 10 or 11 stations throughout Nevada. Most of the rural communities have one. If you have a question or comment, you can send an email to bob@firedupmail.com or leave a message on my home answering machine, 702-257-1060. That'll appear on the bottom of your screen during most of the broadcast, now and again. There are several hundred defensive uses of firearms every week in the United States. Some are good shooting, some are questionable. Sometimes they're just plain wrong, but they're all educational for firearms owners, so I tend to go through the cases that are available and pick ones out that are educational to our listeners. Fired Up is a nationwide show. The results that we give, the advice that we give, may not apply to you if you live in a different jurisdiction than the state of Nevada. So the advice is designed to keep you out of jail and keep you from losing civil lawsuits. But if you are involved in an actual case at the moment, you need to find a local criminal defense lawyer. Either my guest or I can direct you to one if you give me a call or send him an email, which we'll get on to in just a minute. And we'll direct you to somebody who does, usually a decent criminal defense lawyer who does gun cases. They're kind of unique wherever you happen to go. My guest today is California and Nevada attorney Donald J. Green. Don, if you'd give a bit of your background for anybody who doesn't know that.
Okay.
There could be somebody left.
There could be someone left. Again, Bob, thank you so much for having me on your show, and it's a real pleasure and an honor to be here. Again, my name is Don Green, and I've been a lawyer in California and Nevada now 35 years, with the substantial emphasis of my practice being criminal defense and gun cases. Everything from administrative proceedings, concealed weapons permits, defense of the use of firearms, denials of firearms permits, denials of purchases of firearms, representation before the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, FBI, and the local authorities in Nevada and in California, if necessary, concerning firearms. You can find me on dongreenlaw.com, or you can even call me on my personal cellular, which is 702-409-8239. And we'll be glad to get back to you, just like we had somebody the other day that called from your show, call my cellular, and we're more than happy to speak with him.
Okay, the first story I want to talk about actually appeared in the local newspaper here, the Las Vegas Review-Journal, on the 2nd of July. This is an interesting self-defense case. A fellow named Troy and his 32-year-old roommate, a fellow named Brandon, were watching a football game on September 5th, 2013, here in Vegas near Wigwam and Spencer Street. Troy was trying to give Brandon some relationship advice. Brandon didn't like that, and a quarrel broke out. Brandon, who had been drinking, became aggressive and hit Troy in the back of the head, punched him. Troy wrestled himself away from Brandon, ran through his living room into the master bedroom. He had there a Glock 19 stored in his headboard. Brandon now followed him into the bedroom, tried to choke him. Brandon tried to choke Troy, so Troy grabbed the gun and fired. The aggressor in this case was shot 11 times, and his body was found face down in Troy's bedroom. Prosecutors say Brandon was hit in the back 8 times. Troy only remembers firing 2 shots, a pretty common thing. Since detectives questioned him in September of 2013, Troy has said he was acting in self-defense when he fatally shot his roommate. A jury has now acquitted him of murder. that just happened, which just brought this case to light. One of his attorneys, Monty Levy, said she was grateful to the jurors. Troy declined comment after the verdict was announced. Good idea. I'm very thankful that the jury saw Troy was defending himself, said Levy, who pointed out the deceased's criminal past, which included several felony convictions. The defense attorneys, this Monty Levy and Richard Wright, said 12 shots had been fired within 3 seconds. A lot of things here. Most folks, it's pretty common to fire more rounds than you realize. I could go through case after case after case. Nobody actually counts rounds in real life. If they believe their life's on the line, they just shoot until it goes click. Cops and practiced defense people and everybody else. I did a similar case for Richard Wright's law firm several years ago, and then no cases are exactly the same, but obviously it was a self-defense case similar to that. Given the budget that he had and his firm, it's the first time I'd gone through it, we actually did a cartoon reenactment of the whole incident and then had to have that approved by the judge and so forth, where we could use it and show it to the jury and so on. Given the budget, I'd recommend Richard Wright to anybody that is in that big of a pickle, or if Don Green's not available.
Thank you.
Comments on that?
Okay. 3 important points about this case. The victim is found face down. Now, the average homicide detective, and I'm not saying that they're all average in the sense of intelligence, but the representative homicide detective is going to say, well, if he's face down, that means that he must have been shot in the back, and the kinetic and energy from the shot forced his face down. But we know that in shootings, there are people whose body will rotate when they're shot in the front, and that by the time the next shot comes out, their back is already towards the shooter. So that point there, to me, is something that the prosecution probably focused upon significantly in addition to the number of shots. Second, the ultimate shooter in this case, the man who was arrested, is presumably in his own home or his apartment, and he is shooting a weapon which is a legal type weapon. The Glock 9mm, the 19 probably has 14 rounds, 13, 14 rounds of 9mm. A lot of those were fired, and again, you don't know how many you're firing because you're not going to know. The average concealed weapon shooting, 3 feet, 3 shots, 3 seconds. Those have been your statistics for 30 plus years. The next point is, why was he charged? Let's contrast this. 2 years ago, there was a Henderson man, about 22 years old, who shot his father in the home. The father had been aggressive. The father had beat the son since he was a child, beat the mother, and they were having an argument over grades. That is, the son's grades at the college. The son, when the father was attacking the son, according to the best evidence we have, the son ran into the bedroom, retrieved the father's handgun, and as the father approached the son in their own home, the son fired several shots and emptied the magazine. He was charged with murder and did a deal for second-degree murder without the use of the deadly weapon, which is a life sentence with parole eligibility beginning in 20 years. So why was he charged and got a deal, and this guy, Troy, goes to trial? And that's because of the attorneys.
Exactly.
And you point out that Mr. Wright is a superior lawyer. Monty Levy is a superior defense lawyer. I've seen her work. Very diligent. And I know that they focused the jury's attention probably on the fact that just because you're face down doesn't mean that you were shot in the back out of some kind of aggression. The shots in the back could very well have been as the man was turning, he was rotating his body, dodging, running back and forth. And then again, the man always maintained and never changed his story. This Troy, in 5 years, never changed his story that he was acting in self-defense. Now, I don't know if this young man testified, but one thing you have to realize, your audience, you are going to be your primary witness. And you can't change your story. You can't embellish your story. Stick with the story, stick with the facts, and be as limited in your response to the police as possible, and wait for your lawyer.
Exactly right. We have both seen this over and over again. And I'll just, say the same thing that Don said. When people are threatened, they react like a schoolyard fight. Their tendency when you're going to hit them is to turn and put their hands to defend their face. And that's what people do when you point guns at them. We're just used to doing that reaction. And so we have the victim, if you will, turning at the same time the guy's firing. And once you put in your brain, I'm going to pull the trigger till there's no threat, I'm going to pull the trigger till the threat goes away, whatever your gut reaction is, it takes you a second and a half, 2 seconds to stop firing, to realize the guy's been shot and he's falling away. Seen this over and over again. This is, if you do your work and you have an attorney that knows what they're doing, these are defendable cases. It's just, you got to get the right lawyer at the right time and stick to your guns. Terrible expression, but that's it. This next story comes from KRIO TV7 on the 16th of July this year in a Ballard neighborhood. It's a suburb of Seattle, Washington. A local resident shot a burglar who was breaking into his home early Sunday morning. At approximately 4:45 a.m. on Sunday, the Ballard resident was sleeping in his home in the 700 block of 25th Avenue Northwest, if you know where that is. I always throw that in for some reason, when he heard someone breaking into his house. According to the Seattle Police Department, the resident armed himself with a handgun, left his room to find the intruder had already broken into the mudroom. Took me a while to figure out what that is. We don't have those in Las Vegas.
No, we might today.
Yeah, this week. It's an entryway where you take off your muddy boots or your rain gear and stuff it. It's actually inside the house, but not inside where you normally live. It's an entryway. Anyway, he was in the mudroom trying to gain access to the main house. The guy then fired his gun through the window of the door from between the mudroom and the main house. Then the homeowner called 911 himself, and officers responded. 10 minutes, the guy ran when he was shot at. 10 minutes later, a 35-year-old man with a gunshot wound in his abdomen was dropped off at Swedish Hospital in Ballard and was later transferred to Harborview Medical for further treatment. A neighbor also reported seeing a dark-colored station wagon driving away from a resident's house. Officers later located the car several blocks away, observed flesh, blood inside and outside of the car, as well as what appeared to be stolen property inside the car. A man and a woman were standing near the car when it was found and taken in for questioning. This is kind of a slam dunk if you're a police officer. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. You find a car that looks like the one that was seen. There's nobody else on the road, Duh, you drive over and go, what's going on? And you see the stolen property in plain sight. Pretty good arrest. The man, it turned out, had an outstanding warrant. He was arrested. The woman was the sister of the man who suffered this gunshot wound. She was interviewed and released at the scene. The officers impounded the vehicle. It's still an ongoing investigation. Comments on this are, the bad guys usually flee when they're challenged. This is 4 a.m. Patrol officers don't, as I said, don't have too many vehicles to investigate. The point here is the homeowner, the shooter, called 911 right off the bat. You need to do that before the suspect calls with some BS story about you were trying to murder him and taints the radio call the officers get as to what happened. So or comes up with a good story of how he shot himself accidentally, which is the usual
Right.
one. I shot myself twice in the back accidentally with this .44 Magnum. No. Anyway, it's a slam dunk for the cops. They certainly had PC to talk to these people, and when they saw the stolen property, they made an arrest. Bad guys usually run off when they're shot at, and when they're shot, they even run faster.
That's right. Bob, your listeners and viewers have got to pay attention to this case as to what the homeowner did. 3 very simple things. Number 1, called 911. Did not embellish the story. Number 2, I shot the man through a window in the door in this mudroom. So it wasn't like shooting him through this regular door where you can't see the man. Plus, the man was in his home, in the curtilage of the home. He was in that mudroom, regardless of that was. Third point is, this case is less than 72 hours old. You've taught for decades about the castle doctrine. It's alive and well. So when your listeners and your viewers are in their CCW classes, they really should pay attention to this castle doctrine. Doesn't mean you can kill everybody who comes into your home, but you have the right to defend in your home. It's 4:15 a.m. in the morning. Contrast this if it was 4 o'clock in the afternoon and you live in this condominium project where all the condos look the same and somebody stinking drunk walks into your house and you shoot him, you may be going in jail for manslaughter, second-degree murder. But these little cases like this, your listening audience and viewers must absolutely should pay attention to this.
We're going to take a very short break here and run a word from one of our sponsors, I think, and we'll be right back. Don't go away.
My name is Jerry Creed and I'm a gun trust attorney. If you want to own an NFA firearm, a gun trust is a great way to own it because it allows multiple people to lawfully possess a firearm instead of just a single individual. I have reviewed lots of gun trusts and I have found they often don't include the forms you need to bring people on as trustees and remove them as trustees. In addition, a gun trust will save you the cost of probate and avoid probate, and it can protect your executor and family members. There isn't an element of intent in these laws that affect the NFA firearm possession. So it doesn't matter if your wife didn't intend to sell the gun at a garage sale or yard sale, or your daughter didn't intend to drive the car with the silencer in the trunk. A gun trust is a great way to protect your family members and friends and share in the fun and pleasure of owning NFA weapons. If you want a gun trust done right, remember to trust Jerry.
Hi, I'm Bob Irwin, and I get to do my own commercial. The short version is I've had 50 years experience in firearms, firearm repair, firearm design, 30,000 CCW holders I've personally taught, 20,000 security officers, etc. Taught in 28 police academies, firearms and use force. I've also appeared more than 200 times in gun-related cases in federal, state, and local court. I wrote this book, The Reality of Armed Self-Defense, because it answers virtually all the questions that I get every time I talk to people, answers questions that come in the emails. It will tell you what you need to know to keep yourself out of prison if you get involved in a self-defense shooting case, keep from losing your house in a civil lawsuit. There are lots of things I've learned over these years and watched people make a lot of mistakes. This book will save you a lot. If you purchase one, read through it, I'm sure you will find it enlightening. And it'll save me a lot of time on these shows trying to explain to people what they did wrong and what they shouldn't have done and so forth and so on. So you can buy it by sending me the funds at the address below, bob@firedupmail.com, or leave a message on my phone number there, which is 702-257-1060. I will return your calls and tell you where to mail the money and so forth and so on. They're available on my website also, which is attached to this regular show. Cost is $15. I said add for postage if you live outside the immediate 50 states, and I will get it to you first class mail. Thank you for listening. This book will save you a lot of hassle. Thanks. And we are back. Great commercial. You should buy that book. I know the guy. This story is about a similar thing, sort of. This is from WSPA TV 7. It's a CBS outlet in the town of Travelers Rest. It's in Greenville County, South Carolina. A shooting happened on the Sam Langley Drive about 4:30 p.m. on a Monday afternoon, according to the Greenville County Sheriff's Office. The Sheriff's Office said a local contractor, he's 40 years old, drove to this man's home and started an argument. Both these guys are contractors, building contractor types. The one drives over to the resident, the second guy's home, and gets in an argument. They've known each other for a long period of time, are business competitors, and this has apparently been going on for some time. The resident there demanded the guy leave. The suspect refused and apparently tried to physically attack the resident contractor. He had actually left the house, gone out, gotten into his truck, and the guy followed him out and attacked him through the open window. He was sitting in his truck, apparently starting to drive away. The resident now, who's out in his truck, retrieved a firearm from his truck and shot the aggressor at least one time. The suspect initially ran from the home after being shot, but was found later by sheriff's deputies responding to the call. According to a neighbor, the man who fired the gun and the aggressor are both contractors who live in the nearby area. The resident called 911 shortly after the incident to report the shooting. Good idea again. The aggressor fled, but responding deputies found him a short time later. He was treated at a local hospital and then taken to the detention center where he remains on temporary bond. He's charged with assault and battery in third-degree stalking according to the warrants that were issued. This is pretty well handled exactly right. The resident called 911 immediately. He did not pursue the guy when the guy ran away. These are two strong indicators to the police that he was not the aggressor in this incident. And the aggressor, of course, when you have kind of mutual combat, the aggressor is the one who is in the wrong. Anyway, your floor, Mr. Green.
Bob, in California, both of these men are probably going to be sharing cells in jail.
Yep.
The resident who was in his truck retrieves the firearm. Where is the immediate perception of great bodily injury? I don't see it. Where is the immediate threat or perception of imminent death? I don't see it. So in California, both of these men are going to be in jail. And the more serious of them is going to be the resident who obtained his weapon, got the weapon, and shot from a vehicle, which is a separate felony, possibly in a residential area, another felony, and shot in an area where others are likely to be injured, another felony, in addition to attempted murder or at least some sort of aggravated assault with the weapon, if the weapon was legal. Plus the fact that the weapon, unless he had a concealed weapons permit, was the weapon legally stored in the vehicle loaded. There's another felony. But where did this happen? This happens in South Carolina. And in your opening monologue today, you point out that your listeners and viewers must be very careful when evaluating these particular cases to see where they happen, because in your particular jurisdiction, the opposite may be true, such as in California. In Nevada, this may be a tough case. this may be a tough case unless we can show, as a defense attorney, that the aggressor had some type of a weapon or was known by the victim, personally known by the victim, to have battered the victim in the past. The victim knew of his propensity for violence. Even that's going to be kind of tough.
Yeah, I mean, looking at it from the prosecutor's standpoint, the first thing I would ask your client on the stand would be say, why didn't you just drive away? Now, there may have been lots of reasons. Maybe his family's in the house. Maybe, maybe. We don't have a lot of details here. But that's, if there's no reason why he didn't just drive, that can be tough, particularly if it's a civil lawsuit over this, which, while the shooting may have been legal, then the civil looks at, was it really necessary?
Yes.
Did you have any other reasonable options that were reasonably safe? And that's where these start to fall apart, because bear in mind, folks, we got two cases here. The criminal look, did you commit a crime, actually? And then the, did you really have to shoot the guy lawsuit? And that's the one that ends up taking your house. So that's another good reason not to talk to anybody about anything until you engage an attorney. And like I say, it is just crucial that if you're involved in anything, even if it looks to you like, oh, this is the easiest thing in the world, I didn't do nothing wrong, bah, 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 bah. When the police officer shows up, politely say, I put the gun in the drawer over there so I didn't have it in my hand when you came in the door. And I'd really like to calm down and talk to an attorney before I make a statement. Do you mind if I do that? And of course, the officer's going to say, well, sure, that's your right. You don't need to make a statement. And you don't. Calm down first. So you don't end up saying, I thought the guy had a gun. And that's nice. But shooting somebody because you think they have a gun is a far cry from shooting somebody because they have a gun. Anyway, we're gonna sign off here in just a second, but we're gonna be back next week with several more of these instances, because I ran into just a whole pile of business owners shooting people who came in and tried to rob them or steal stuff. That will take a lot of interesting discussion. We've had a number of these cases in Las Vegas lately, and I know they're going on all over the country, smoke shops and liquor stores and whatever, being robbed at an incredible rate. Anyway, our new website is up and running at firedupwithboberwin.com. It contains our recent shows, and the older shows are being added to it. The new shows are in high def. And I've had several people point out I cut myself shaving and it's showing on TV. The old shows, you couldn't see that. So, not getting away with it anymore. The commercials keep us on the air. When you have you see our commercials from our other attorneys or buy a book or whatever it happens to be. Capitalism wins every time. It keeps us on the air. We'll be back next Thursday here on our website and on YouTube, at least at the moment, at the American Guns and Glory Network. Remember, the audio portion is rebroadcast, repeated on the Nevada Talk Network across Nevada. It appears in, I think now it's up to 11 or 12 stations. And they all come on at the same time at noon on Saturdays. Look up the one near you. Thank you for supporting Fired Up. Don, thank you for appearing again, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you so much, Bob.
Take care.
Thank you.